All right, let's do this. We're going to cover all of economics. No fluff, no BS. From the choices you make every day, all the way up to the global stage. And you know what? It all boils down to one simple, fundamental problem that starts, well, it starts with you.
Let's be real, you're a human, and that means you want stuff. I mean, sure, the basics like food, water, a roof over your head, but you also probably want a slightly bigger TV than your cousin has, right? Don't worry, it's not just you. It's literally everyone. We all have wants.
So, that begs the question, right? If we all want all this stuff, why can't we just have it all? Why can't you have everything you want? This is the core question that launched the entire field of economics. The answer in one word is scarcity. There just isn't enough stuff to go around. Not enough cool cars, not enough beachfront houses, and definitely not enough of those slightly larger than your cousin's TVs. And that's it. That's all economics really is. It's the study of how we as humans make choices when we can't have everything. Think about it. If pizza were infinite and free, you wouldn't need an economist, but it's not. So here we are.
Okay, so let's start small. Let's start with you. The basic problem, you versus the world. Because honestly, this is where all of economics really begins, with the choices you make every single day.
See, every single choice you make comes with a trade-off. It has a cost. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about what you're giving up. For example, right now, by watching this explainer, you are actively choosing not to watch compilations of cat fails on the internet. That's your opportunity cost, the value of the next best thing you could be doing. I'm going to try to make this worth it for you.
Okay, but here's where it gets really cool. This idea applies to skills too. It's called comparative advantage. Let's say you've got a friend who's a faster coder and a faster designer than you are. You might think, well, they should just do everything then. But hold on. What if they are a rock star coder, like 10 times faster, but only a little bit faster at design? Well, it actually makes sense for them to focus 100% on coding and for you to handle the design. Why? Because the opportunity cost for them to stop coding and do design is huge. You, on the other hand, give up less to do the design work. That's comparative advantage. It's about specializing in what you're least bad at. It's why everyone can be economically useful, even if you're not the absolute best at anything.
All right, so we've established that we all have to make these trade-offs. But of course, we're not just making them on our own little islands. We're all in this together. So let's zoom out a bit. How do we solve this scarcity problem as a group? The solution? Well, it's markets and money.
We solve it using markets. And a market is just a fancy word for any place where buyers and sellers get together to trade. The one simple rule that makes the whole thing tick? Incentives. Just think about your local pizza place. If they jack up the price to $50 a slice, fewer people are going to buy it, right? But more shops might want to get in on that sweet, sweet profit. If the price drops to 50 cents, suddenly everyone wants a slice. But most shops will think, not worth our time. That constant push and pull between how much stuff there is, that's supply, and how much people want it, that's demand, is what magically sets the price for, well, for everything.
But you know, trying to trade things directly is a huge pain. Imagine trying to trade your web design skills for groceries. Or worse, the classic, I'll trade you this goat for your Wi-Fi password problem. It's just clunky. How do we make all this trade happen smoothly? The answer, of course, is money. Money is the great invention that fixes this. It's like economic lube. It just makes all the gears of trade and markets spin without grinding to a halt.
So money basically does three simple but super important jobs. First, it's a medium of exchange. You can just buy stuff with it. No more trying to trade chickens for coffee. Second, it's a unit of account. It lets us count stuff and put a price on it. We know a bike is worth $500, not 50 chickens. And third, it's a store of value. You can save it, stick it under your mattress, and trust that it'll still be worth something later when you're ready to buy that TV.
Okay, we've gone from you to the marketplace. Now let's go even bigger. Let's zoom out to the 30,000-foot view. How do we measure the health of an entire country's economy? How do we take its temperature?
The main tool we use is called GDP, which stands for Gross Domestic Product. It's basically the total price tag of all the finished goods and services a country produces in a year. And I mean finished, like the whole car, not the individual tires and steel that went into it. The formula looks complicated, but it's pretty simple. It's all the stuff you and I buy, that's consumption. All the stuff businesses invest in, like new factories, that's investment. All the money the government spends, that's government spending. And finally, you add up everything we sell to other countries, exports, and subtract everything we buy from them, imports. That's it. It's kind of like the economy's annual report card.
But that report card can be a little tricky, because what happens when prices go crazy? That's where inflation comes in.
You've definitely felt this. It's that feeling when your $20 bill just doesn't seem to buy as much at the grocery store as it did last year. The simplest way to think about it is right there. It's what happens when you have more and more money chasing the same amount of stuff.
And look, if you think a little bit of inflation is annoying, get a load of this. In 2008, in Zimbabwe, the annual inflation rate hit 89.7 sextillion%. I mean, that number is so big, it's hard to even comprehend. Prices were literally doubling every single day. The government was printing $100 trillion bills that couldn't even buy you a loaf of bread by the next morning. This is what's called hyperinflation, and it's what happens when money basically becomes worthless.
So who is trying to steer this massive economic ship and stop that kind of thing from happening? Well, you've basically got two pilots in the cockpit. On one side, you have monetary policy, which is run by central banks like the U.S. Federal Reserve. They're the ones messing with the money supply and interest rates. On the other side, you've got fiscal policy. That's the government's job, and their tools are taxes and spending.
Now, when the government spends more money than it brings in from taxes, which happens a lot, it has to borrow to make up the difference. It's like running up a credit card bill. And when you add up all of those annual credit card bills, year after year after year, you get the national debt. For the U.S., that number is now over $34 trillion. And yeah, it's still climbing. Economists argue constantly about how much this actually matters. But one thing's for sure, it's a huge number that's going to shape the choices we have to make down the road.
But of course, in today's world, no economy exists in a bubble. We are all connected in this huge, complicated global game. So let's zoom out one final time and look at the world stage.
And this brings us right back to that idea of comparative advantage, but now on a global scale. Just look at this example. For Brazil to grow 2 tons of coffee, they have to give up the chance to grow 1 ton of corn. That's their opportunity cost. But for Canada, with its totally different climate, to grow that same amount of coffee, they'd have to give up 2 tons of corn. So who's better at making coffee? Well, Brazil is, because they give up less corn to do it. They have the comparative advantage. So it makes total sense for Brazil to go all in on coffee, Canada to go all in on corn, and then they just trade. By specializing, they both end up with more coffee and more corn than if they tried to do it all themselves. It's a win-win.
And this kind of specialization is why we have these massive global supply chains for pretty much everything you own, from your phone to your breakfast. It's like this giant, worldwide Rube Goldberg machine. It's ridiculously efficient when it's working, but man, is it fragile. Remember when that one container ship got stuck in the Suez Canal? It blocked something like 12% of all global trade. A single boat. That shows you just how delicate the whole system can be.
So how does a company in Japan get paid for a car they sell in the US? They don't want dollars, they want yen. That's where exchange rates come in. An exchange rate is literally just the price of one currency in terms of another. These rates are changing constantly, every second of every day, and they have a huge impact on the price of pretty much anything you buy that wasn't made right here at home.
Okay, so here's the catch with a lot of traditional economics. These models often assume that we're all perfectly logical, rational robots who always make the best possible choice. But we're not, are we? This is where a newer field called behavioral economics comes in. It mashes up psychology and economics to show that we are all predictably irrational. For instance, we absolutely hate losing something way more than we enjoy gaining the same thing. We'd rather have $5 right now than $50 a year from now. And we totally follow the herd. Just think about the great toilet paper panic of 2020. Our weird human brains have a massive impact on how economies actually work.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Here it is. When you strip away all the jargon and all the complex charts, every single economic system that has ever existed, from pure free market capitalism to the most rigid state-run communism, they're all just different ways of trying to answer the same 3 basic questions.
And these are the questions. What do we make? With our limited time, energy, and resources, what stuff should we actually produce? How do we make it? What's the best way to use our resources to get it done? And maybe the most important one, who gets it? Once everything is made, how do we decide who gets what? The thing is, there's no one perfect answer. There's no magic formula. Every single answer to these questions involves a trade-off. And that right there is the heart of economics. So the real question isn't how do we get everything we want, it's which trade-offs are we willing to live with?